They handed my kid a dollar store hairbrush while her cousins unboxed drones and debit cards. "Some children earn more," my mother said. I zipped our coats and left. "My name's Maya Brooks, 35, from Tulsa. I'm the sister edited out. If you've ever watched your child shrink to fit someone else's comfort, stay." The night slapped sleet against the windshield as I drove home. The heater hummed low, steady. Each streetlight cut through the frost in thin gold lines. My hands stayed locked at 10 and 2. No music, no talk. Just the faint rattle of a broken vent, the sound of holding it together. When I walked in, the house was still. The kind of still that hums in your ears. I dropped my purse, hung our coats, and set the folder on the table. It hit with a clap that sounded louder than it should have. Inside was the notary seal. Red, perfect, official. Grandpa's signature trembled across the page, each letter a war between pride and pain. He'd written the words himself. "Protect descendants." By Maya. The ink looped, then shook, then stopped. Under the lamp, the seal gleamed like a heartbeat. I traced the edge with my thumb. Cold paper, warm skin. Then I turned the next page. The letter named me sole acting trustee for my bloodline. No signatures missing. No space for debate. I scrolled the banking dashboard on my laptop. Every figure glowed blue against the dark. Trust funds, access, control, all one tap away. My finger hovered for a beat, then pressed initiate restrictions. A window popped up. "Are you sure?" Yes, I was. The blue screen reflected in my eyes, washing the kitchen in cold light. Outside, the wind shifted. The house answered with a low creak. Respect is measurable. When the laptop clicked shut, silence thickened. The fridge hummed softly, the only sound left alive. I stood there too long, palms pressed to the table's edge, heartbeat echoing through my wrists. Then I walked down the hall. Lena's door was cracked open, a slice of pale light spilling across the carpet. She slept on her side, one arm hanging off the bed, her breath small and even. On the nightstand sat the pink hairbrush. Cheap plastic. Half the bristles gone. The kind you buy in a rush because someone forgot she mattered. I picked it up. It bent under my grip. My hand shook once, then stilled. I slid down the wall, the brush pressed to my chest. The carpet smelled like her shampoo. Strawberry, too sweet. 8 seconds passed. No words, just my breathing, uneven, raw. For a moment, I wanted to scream. Instead, I pressed my palm flat against the floor and stayed there, counting each breath until the shaking stopped. When it did, I set the brush back on the table beside her hand. She stirred, sighed, turned over, didn't wake. I wiped my face with my sleeve, stood, and backed out quietly. In the dim light, the brush caught one thin line of reflection, pink, fading to gray. I closed the door. The hum of the fridge filled the silence again, and for the first time in years, I let it. By morning, my phone erupted, alerts stacking like dominoes. The group chat flashed white, names strobing fast across the screen. Mom, Dad, Dana. Mom's text hit first. "You overstepped." Before I could blink, her call took over the screen. I answered on speaker. Her voice came through shaking but sharp. "You overstepped." I kept mine steady. You'll speak to me after you speak to Lena. Eye level. Today. Click. The call ended clean, leaving a blue flicker crawling up the kitchen wall. Dad's text followed seconds later. Come talk. I typed back. At your house. Everyone present. Lawyer joins. Sent. I opened the laptop. Banking dashboard. Verify. Download. Print. The pages came fast. Timestamps, ledger codes, proof spreading across the table. I pressed the red stamp down. Emergency trustee powers. Authorized. The ink bled dark into the paper. A ping cut through the quiet. Dana. We could have talked before you made it legal. I didn't reply. Another buzz. Dad again. We didn't mean to hurt you. I typed back. Intent doesn't change math. Send. The notifications kept coming, piling until their tones melted into a single electric hum. It felt alive, like the house itself was bracing for impact. Then came the sound that didn't fit. A single, deliberate knock at the door. Everything stopped. The hum flattened into silence. I turned. The top sheet fluttered once, disturbed by air. Keys caught a line of light beside the laptop. One last buzz. An email. Subject: Verification of witnesses. From Grandpa's CPA. I opened it. All signatures validated. Witness 9 months before death. No amendments. Trustee control remains active. Maya Brooks. I stared at the screen until the text blurred. Permanent. Airtight. Done. I closed the laptop. The hinge snapped shut like a lock. Keys jingled against the papers as I picked them up. Enough, I said to the empty room. We're stopping this now. The fridge hummed low, steady as breath. Same sound as the night before. The sound of truth settling. Gravel cracked under my tires as I swung into the drive. The brakes screamed. The car jolted to a stop. The engine coughed once, then went silent. Dad stood on the porch. The thermos slipped from his hand. Coffee splashed across the steps, steam rising in the cold air. Mom burst out the door, panic and authority tangled in her voice. You can don't! I was already halfway up the walk, folder tight under my arm. Sit. Down. The words cut through everything. Even the wind stopped. Dad crouched to wipe the spill, sleeve darkening to brown. Mom froze behind the screen door, face pale. Dana stood near the stroller, fingers locked white around the handle. I set the folder on the porch rail. Pages flapped against the cold. 6 years, I said. $61,000. I flipped through the sheets. Quick flashes. Resort invoices. Ministry receipts. Transfers marked donation. Each line, the same name. Dana. Then the montage sharpened. Instagram photos. Poolside smiles. Matching dates stamped in ink. Every lie left a paper trail, I said, and it all led here. Dana's eyes fell. Her phone lit in her pocket, her own reflection in the screen, frozen mid-laugh. Dad looked up, voice low. I worked 40 years to give them what I never had. I met his stare, and you took it from the one who never had a chance. The pen circled a number, the sound sharp as metal. Venmo, I said quietly, sliding the last page forward. Recurring every 19 days. Choir donations? Dana's throat moved. Her husband's name gleamed beside every transfer. She swallowed hard, but said nothing. Dad tried. Let's not... I snapped the folder shut. The sound cracked like a gun. Echo lingered, sharp, final. Mom flinched. Silence filled the space where the spill hissed. "I didn't know," she whispered. I didn't look at her. "You signed every release." Her mouth opened, but nothing came. A loose page lifted, spun once, and landed in the puddle. The ink bled outward, yellow fading into brown. Dad's shoulders sagged. "She's your sister." "Exactly." Wind bit through the creak of the door. Lena stood there, hoodie drawn tight, a printed ledger clutched to her chest. The one from the car seat. Her voice trembled, but didn't break. "Is this why Grandma hates me?" The question hit harder than any accusation. I turned, words gone. She stepped closer, hand small but steady, resting on my sleeve. "It's okay," she whispered. "You don't have to lie." Something in me gave way. Quiet, deep, clean. The folder slipped from my hand and hit the porch with a soft thud. Pages spread, edges damp, highlights bleeding like tears. I knelt, pulling her close. Soap and cold air in her hair. "I knew," she whispered. "Just needed you to know." I knew. Behind us, Dad's thermos rolled, metal striking concrete. One clear sound, then stillness. Steam curled from the coffee, ghost-like, fading into the chill. Mom stood in the doorway, glassy-eyed. Dad turned away, sleeve stained, still trying to clean what couldn't be undone. Lena's hand climbed my arm. "It's done, Mom," she said softly. "You did what you had to." Her calm steadied me more than any verdict could. I rose, her hand still in mine. The porch light flickered once, catching the puddle and turning it gold before cooling again. Dad stooped again, stain unyielding. Mom's shadow filled the doorway, small and uncertain. I looked at Lena. "Let's go." We stepped off the porch together. Gravel crunched under our feet, muted, final. Behind us, the door stayed open just enough for cold air to breathe through. The scent of coffee followed us to the car. Some debts don't need collecting. They come home on their own. Lena squeezed my hand. "Mom," she whispered, voice steady. "I'm ready for what comes next. And so are you, for what they say next." Her words lingered as I started the engine. In the rear view, the porch light flickered again. Just once, like it hadn't decided which side it belonged to. The porch light flickered as we stepped inside. Shadows slid across the dining table, the room smaller than I remembered, chairs uneven, air thick with everything unspoken. My lawyer took a seat beside me. Across the table, Dad stood instead of sitting, one hand gripping the back of a chair like he needed it to stand upright. Mom's tissue had disintegrated between her fingers. Dana's phone screen glowed in her palm, thumb trembling but not scrolling. No one spoke until she did. "Split the trust and call it peace," Dana said. "Half each. No lawyers." I kept my voice even. "No charges today. No split ever. You face what you did." The room went still. The ticking clock froze mid-second. I looked directly at Mom. First, an apology to Lena. Filmed. Eye level. Her jaw twitched. She turned toward Dad. He exhaled, long and low. Next, handwritten letters. Both of you. Dana's phone buzzed. Ethan, 2 missed calls. She declined without looking. Her hand shook before she set the phone face down. "Third," I said. "Lena's birthday, hosted at your house, under my supervision." Mom's voice cracked. "You'd let her come back?" "If you earn it." I slid a photo across the table. Lena at the art center, cheeks streaked with red paint, eyes mid-laugh. 61,000 from your accounts, I said. New trust, a lock only she can open at 19. Dad reached for his wallet. The cracked leather looked as old as his hands. His thumb traced the seam once before he shut it, soft as breath. No one moved. Then Dad spoke. Porch. Outside, the cold bit hard. The air hummed faintly with the chime's dull rattle under the eave. He held out a small folded paper, the corners damp from his grip. Last Christmas, he said quietly, Lena asked me why I didn't love her like I love them. He swallowed. I told her I did. His throat trembled. She said, Then why don't you show it? Her voice echoed in my head. Young, steady, familiar. Then why don't you show it? She was 8, he said, and I had no answer. He pressed the paper into my hand. Here, make sure I show it this time. I nodded once. There was nothing else to say. The chime swayed again, one note carried off by the wind. When we stepped back inside, the warmth felt foreign. Mom stood at the table, eyes raw, face wet. Without a word, she pulled off her wedding rings and pushed them toward me. The metal struck the wood, sharp, final. Collateral, she said softly. Until you believe us? Dana looked down. Her phone lit up again. Ethan calling. She ignored it. The lawyer stamped the last page. The sound was dull, almost tired. That's permanent, he said. Once signed, it's binding. Mom flinched. Dad didn't move. Silence filled every corner of the room. I looked at each of them. This isn't revenge, I said. It's documentation. No answer. Just the faint hum of the fridge down the hall. I took the folded paper from my pocket, the Wi-Fi password he'd given me, and placed it beside Mom's rings. Keep it, I said. You'll need it to send the funds. Dad's mouth tightened, guilt flickering across his face like light through a broken curtain. The lawyer gathered the pages, his motions slow and deliberate. Paper brushed paper. A sound too soft to match the weight of it. Mom's bare hand trembled on the table. Dana's reflection shimmered in the coffee she hadn't touched. No one looked at anyone else. I stood. The floorboards groaned under my step. The porch light outside flickered through the window again. One pulse, then gone. The wind shifted. The chime gave a single note, thin but steady, like it was waiting to finish a song it didn't know how to end. Behind me, the lawyer closed his briefcase. The click echoed in the quiet. I walked to the door. The air felt lighter, but not clean. Behind me, the chime rang again. Soft, almost forgiveness, but not quite yet. The chime's rhythm lingered into the week, a metronome for amends and unfinished business. Dad's hammer struck the soil outside, each thud exact, heavy with purpose. 40 years regret in one swing. Inside, I crossed items off the grocery list. Ink bled through the paper, black lines cutting through the wood grain. My pen tapped to his rhythm without trying. Outside, the hammer paused. A faint echo returned from the mirror he used to rehearse his bow, a hollow sound looping through glass and air. At night, the Wi-Fi monitor blinked green. Its slow pulse overlapped with my reflection in the screen, light over skin, calm control overtaking what used to be chaos. By Thursday afternoon, the art center smelled of turpentine and orange slices. Sunlight spread gold across the floor, catching on half-dry paint and small sneakers darting between tables. Mom stood at the supply counter, clutching brushes so tightly the wooden handles creaked. "Can you help Mia?" the teacher called. "She's shy." Mom hesitated, then crouched beside a girl. 6, soft curls, eyes fixed on her shoes. "What are you painting?" "My grandma," the girl whispered. "But I can't remember her face." Mom's breath caught. The brushes shook. "Tell me about her," she said gently. "I'll help you remember." The first streak of red bloomed under their joined hands. Ledger hue on canvas and sleeve, uneven and alive. Mom's hand froze mid-stroke when she noticed us in the doorway. For a second, her eyes flicked to Lena, then back to the girl. The brush moved again. Through the glass, we watched her laugh. Awkward, startled, real. Lena whispered, "She's different." "She's trying," I said, squeezing her hand. "Is it enough?" I didn't answer. The paint shimmered in the light, neither wet nor dry, as if still deciding what it wanted to become. That evening, Dad helped Lena tape gold stars to a banner that read, "Stargazer." His hands moved slow, deliberate. One star slipped. Lena caught it, pressed it down again. "Why are they being nice now?" "Because I'm teaching them how," I said. His smile wavered, a flicker of old habit, then steadied. The mixer on the counter roared to life. Frosting splattered across the cabinets and counter, dots of white like snowfall. Laughter broke loose, unguarded and brief. For one moment, the house remembered how to sound alive. Later that night, hallway lights dimmed to amber. Dana stood at the doorway, half in shadow, her face unreadable. Lena fumbled with the clasp of her silver locket. The chain slipped. Before I could move, Dana stepped forward. "Here," she murmured. She took the ends of the chain, her movement slow but sure. The red paint stain on Lena's sleeve caught the lamplight, its reflection flickering in Dana's eyes. Her jaw tightened. Envy flashed there, sharp as breath, then softened. She fastened the clasp carefully, her fingers trembling once, then still. No one spoke. Silence held, but it wasn't cold. Her eyes lingered on the locket, a small flicker of something human behind them. Permission to try. Maybe forgiveness testing its shape. At 11:03, the house settled into its hum. I folded laundry on the couch, the smell of clean cotton mixing with leftover frosting. The phone buzzed on the table. Mom's name filled the screen. I answered. Her voice cracked. "Not the house. Please." Behind her words came the faint scrape of hairbrush bristles. The same sound from that night, dragging through the static. The past still clawed for space. I kept my tone even. "See you Saturday." The call ended. The silence swelled. The hum deepened, layered with the chime's faint echo outside. It wasn't silence anymore. It was rhythm, steady and patient. I sat still, hands resting on a folded towel, the sound filling the room like a heartbeat you could almost measure. Healing didn't sound like music. It sounded like this. Soft, mechanical, persistent. Hum deepens. Continuity, not quiet. A reminder that Saturday waits, and unfinished things don't stay buried for long. At 6:47 in the morning, my car idled at the curb. I watched through the windshield, hands still on the wheel, breath counting to 3. My phone buzzed once. A text from my lawyer. Parked across the street. I glanced at the back seat. "You ready?" I asked. Lena looked up from her sketchbook. "Are you?" My hand hovered on the gear shift. Drive, park, drive. I left it in park and opened the door. Inside the yard, the white tent waited. Chairs lined both sides. Dad stood near the front, straightening himself like he'd practiced. When he saw Lena, he gave a small bow. Awkward, stiff, but honest. A ripple of polite laughter moved through the guests. I kept walking until we reached the table reserved for us. Mom stepped forward with a small silver-wrapped box. Lena hesitated, hands folded. Dad nudged her shoulder gently. She took the gift without looking up. "Thank you," she said, voice small. "Straighten your—" Mom stopped herself mid-word. "Sorry, habit." Lena unwrapped the paper. A locket rested in her palm, engraved. "You are always enough." She traced the letters with a fingernail, slow and careful, the faint scratch carrying farther than it should. She glanced at me. I gave one nod. That was enough. A single red light glowed near the corner. The lawyer's camera recorded, silent. I let it. Midway through, Dana appeared at the edge of the tent holding a rectangular package. She didn't cross the line until Lena noticed her and gave a tiny tilt of the head. Dana approached the table and set the box down. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," she said, barely above the music. "Just permission to try." Inside were real supplies. Good paper, real brushes, pencils that didn't crumble. Lena's mouth parted a fraction, then closed again. She touched the bristles like they might bite. No one said thank you, but the air eased by a degree. When the talking swelled again, Lena leaned close. "Are they like this when I'm not here?" "They will be," I said. "Not hope. Decision." Mom slid an envelope across the cloth. I opened it. A 1-year local art mentorship and a summer studio deposit. $2,300, paid with her personal card. I looked up, but didn't smile. "Good start," I said. A single click followed. Camera shutter, clean and quick. People stilled for a heartbeat, aware that the moment now lived elsewhere too. My phone vibrated on the dessert table. An email preview lit the screen. That family ministry vendor registered as a shell for a luxury retreat group. Dates matched the withdrawals. My thumb hovered over reply. A breeze nipped the sidewall of the tent. I locked the screen and slid the phone face down. Later, the gifts were stacked. The plates gathered. The chatter thinning into small pockets. I sat at the end of the long table with my notebook. The totals waited where I'd left them. Lena worked a new pencil across a scrap of paper, testing pressure, getting used to the weight. Dad refilled water like it was a job. Mom watched Lena and forgot to blink. I wrote one clean line beneath the ledger. Pending. Final reckoning. The pen pressed hard enough to leave an indent. Ink held at the tail of the G, dense and dark. "Grandpa," Lena called softly without looking up. "Can you hold this paper?" Dad stepped in, palm steady, and she taped down the edge. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. Dana stood just outside the tent line with her hands empty. She caught my eye and didn't look away. I felt the tug to grant something I couldn't name, then let it pass. Trying would have to be enough. For now. People began to leave. Chairs scraped. Someone laughed too loud. The lawyer gave me a small nod and walked toward the street. I stacked our plates, slid the envelope back to Mom, and touched the locket chain at Lena's neck to make sure the clasp had caught. It had. "Ready?" I asked Lena. She slipped the new brushes into a canvas roll and tied the cord in a neat double knot. "Ready." We stepped out from under the tent. The air outside felt clearer. Not cleaner, but clearer. Behind us, Dad started folding the edge of the tarp like he knew what he was doing. Mom tucked the envelope into her bag and held the strap tight with both hands. I looked down at the notebook again before I closed it. The line I'd written stayed simple, stark, true. I slid the book into my tote and picked up the phone from the dessert table. No new messages. Good. As we walked toward the car, Lena touched the lock at once, thumb passing over the engraving like a promise she could measure. She looked back at the tent and then at me. They will be, she said, trying my words on. They will, I answered. The engine turned over. The clock on the dash rolled forward a minute. I pulled away slow, leaving the tent small in the rear view. The day didn't feel finished. It felt accounted for. The dining room looked emptier than it ever had. Only a folder and a calculator sat on the table. Afternoon light sliced across the surface, dividing every face in half, bright on one side, shadow on the other. The papers lay in perfect rows, like battle lines drawn in ink. Totals glared in red. $64,800. Below that, a repayment plan. $300 per month. Lena Education Fund. I read the clause aloud. Any sliding of Lena pauses contact for 19 weeks and doubles that month's payment. Dad's pen tapped once against the table, then stopped. Mom stood suddenly, her chair scraping across the tile. Wait, she said. She left the room, her footsteps fading down the hall. When she came back, she carried a small wooden box. She set it on the table and opened it carefully, like something inside might break. Inside were baby shoes, a hospital bracelet, and a faded ultrasound photo. I frowned. What is this? Her voice trembled. Lena's, from when she was born. She pulled out an old yellow envelope, the handwriting faint and soft. To my granddaughter. I wrote this the day you brought her home, she said. She slid it toward me. I forgot this version of me. I opened it, read silently. The words blurred after the first few lines. She watched me, eyes wet. I can't be her again. That woman who wrote that. A pause. But I can try to meet her halfway. I closed the envelope gently and looked at her for a long moment. Then I pushed the contract forward. Then sign. Her hand shook as she pushed it back instead. If you do this, she said quietly, you lose me as your mother. My hand froze above the pen. 3 seconds passed in silence, long enough to hear the clock tick once. I lost you, I said, the day you gave Lena that hairbrush. I slid the contract back toward her. The paper scraped across the wood, sharp and final. Her shoulders folded, the tissue twisted tight in her fist. Dad didn't wait for her. He picked up the pen and signed without looking at her. Each stroke was slow, deliberate. When he finished, he added one more line beneath his signature. Until balance paid, Dana's household removed from all beneficiary items. Through the glass door, I saw movement, Dana's reflection. She watched him write her name. Tears welled. One slipped down her cheek. She wiped it fast, then backed away from the door. Mom saw the addendum and whispered, her voice raw. You're choosing her over our daughter? Dad's reply came hollow. I'm choosing what's right. Finally. Outside, Dana slid down the wall, silent sobs shaking her shoulders. The printer started up, breaking the quiet with a mechanical hum. The pages fed through slowly, stamping heat and authority into the air. The sound sliced through the stillness like static. When the final page landed, Mom reached for the pen again. She pressed too hard. The ink bled outward, spreading her name into a dark, uneven blot. She didn't look up. No one spoke. The notary seal clicked once. A faint hiss rose as the paper cooled. Through the glass, I glanced toward the doorway. Dana stood there, blurred by reflection. Her face streaked. her posture small. Our eyes met for 2 seconds. Neither of us waved. I looked away first. In the hallway, the light was dimmer. I lifted Lena's drawing, Perimeter, from the sideboard. The paper edges were slightly curled, the crayon marks bold and uneven. I slid it into a clean white frame and hung it straight on the wall, perfectly aligned with the doorway. I stepped back until it was centered. The printer's echo faded behind me, replaced by the steady hum of the house. Not silence, just weight settling. I stood there one last moment before turning toward the door. Respect is measurable, I said under my breath. Then I left the room. December came quiet and soft. One table, even gifts. Laughter sounded natural for once, not rehearsed. Lena unwrapped a graphics tablet first, then a slim laptop, then a museum pass tucked inside a silver envelope. She grinned wide, cheeks flushed from the heater. For the first time, the room felt equal. No measuring, no missing seats. Down the hallway, under a brass sconce, a small plaque gleamed. Perimeter, by Lena Brooks, age 11. The kettle whistled from the kitchen. The heater hummed steady. There was no silence, only warmth. Across the room, Dana stood near the doorway, half lit by the tree's glow. Her eyes followed Lena laughing with her grandparents. Jealousy flickered once, faint and human, then softened. She stepped forward, helped fold coats, no words needed. The air held steady, no tension, just something close to peace. Later that night, in my bedroom, lamplight spread soft across the dresser. I opened the top drawer and pulled out the pink dollar store hairbrush. It was lighter than I remembered. Half the bristles were gone. The handle bent where my hand once squeezed too tight. I held it for a long time, thumb tracing the missing teeth like scars. Lena appeared in the doorway, holding her new silver brush from the gift set. "You kept it," she said. "Couldn't throw it away." She stepped closer and took it gently from my hand. "Can I?" I nodded. We walked out to the backyard. The night air was sharp and clean, the stars spread wide above us. The fire pit cracked with small pops as the logs caught flame. Lena knelt and set the old brush into the fire. Plastic curled, warped, then melted slow. The smell was faint and bitter, but the sound, tiny collapses, felt final. She stared at the fire and said quietly, "Grandpa's letter said I'm a stargazer." "You are," I said. She leaned against my shoulder. "But I'm also your daughter first." The fire glowed orange in her hair. The stars shimmered above us, cold and distant. The sound of the brush folding into ash filled the silence that used to belong to hurt. I slipped my arm around her. For once, neither of us looked back. A soft buzz broke the quiet. My phone lit up on the patio table. A message from Dana. "I heard what Dad did. I deserve it. Can I start somewhere?" I looked at the screen, then at Lena, already asleep against my arm, her breath slow and even. The glow from the phone reflected across her cheek like moonlight. I typed slowly. "January, your place." Then hit send. The message whooshed away, small and weightless. The fire burned lower, crackling to embers. On the drive home later that week, the road light swept across the windshield in soft intervals, gold, then dark, then gold again. Lena slept in the back seat, her hand curled around the new brush. The highway stretched quiet, clean, almost forgiving. I looked at her reflection in the rearview mirror. For a moment, I saw both versions of us, the ones who burned and the ones who stayed. I whispered, She'll never have the grandparents I dreamed for her, but she'll have the ones she deserves, and she'll know the difference. I drove on, the hum of tires mixing with the low rhythm of the engine. The last lights of town faded behind us. At the house, one chair sat empty at the dining table, but above it hung her drawing, Perimeter, framed in gold, catching the final trace of light before the heater clicked on again. Respect is measurable.